In the midst of all these names being thrown around, one name we have not heard is Oscar Piastri. And I have to ask, why the hell is he not in the frame for a Formula 1 seat?
Okay, so why isn't this guy, Oscar Piastri, in Formula 1 right now? I mean, he's being talked about as the next big thing, and the same likes of Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc. If he's supposed to be this next big thing in Formula 1, then why is he sitting on the bench at Alpine? But before we even dive into that, we have to ask some questions. First off, why is he being compared to Verstappen and Leclerc, and why do people say he's the next huge F1 talent? Second question, why doesn't he have a seat right now? Third question, when is the last time an F2 champion failed to race for a team the next year? And finally, whose fault is this all? So I guess we start here. Mr. Piastri is the next F1 world champion, meaning he's going to have to take down the ranks of Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc. But the question I'm asking is, where is all the hype and where did it come from? And the best way to do that would be to compare the junior careers of these three drivers. So let's do that.
Max, what happened?
No, it's just unfair.
What's happened with Max?
Nothing, just an incident on the race. No.
So taking a look at the three careers of these gentlemen, one thing pops right out. Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc dominated their karting career, and Oscar Piastri, well, he did not. And I mean, it's a long way off. Just looking at Max Verstappen, he managed to win 23 karting championships in the matter of 9 years. Extremely impressive. Charles Leclerc, on the other hand, had managed to win 8 karting championships in the matter of 8 years. Once again, very impressive considering these are kids we are talking about. Now, Oscar Piastri, how many did he win? The answer would be 0. Yes, the next great talent in Formula 1 never won a single karting championship in just 3 years. But luckily, karting is just the beginning.
3 titles in a row for the Australian driver, Formula Renault, Formula 3, and now Formula 2.
Piastri would really get his name in the junior formulas, and this is why he's being regarded as a top talent. Through 6 years of Formula career, Piastri did quite well. It all started in Formula 4, where he picked up 6 wins and notched second in the championship. Then in 2018, Piastri went to Formula Renault and finished 8th in the championship. Then in 2019, Piastri won Formula Renault for his first ever championship, and he won almost half of the races. So this is when Piastri's name really went on the radar. After a decent karting career and a good Formula 4 stint, a Formula Renault championship would be exactly what Oscar Piastri needed to move up to F3.
Yeah! What? Alright.
So he gets promoted to F2 to race for Prima again, the team that he raced F3 in. And guess what? You guess, please.
3 titles in a row for the Australian driver.
He literally won F2. And he didn't just win F2, he won in his first year. He got 6 wins and 11 podiums. I'm starting now to understand why he's getting such high praise. What driver just joins F3 and wins in their rookie year, and then joins F2 and dominates in their rookie year as well? In the matter of 2 years, he wins F3 and F2 all in his first attempt. So this brings us back to the Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc comparison and raises the question, did they have similar Formula Junior career to Piastri, or was it better?
Just an incident.
The issue is that it's kind of hard to answer that question. It's easy for Leclerc because, well, he did the same exact thing. Charles Leclerc won his F3 in the first year in 2016, and then he won in 2017. He won F2. So Charles Leclerc and Piastri had the same exact success in junior formula. So it kind of makes sense with these Piastri and Leclerc comparisons. But what about Verstappen? It's kind of hard with Max because he didn't take the normal route. Verstappen had been groomed by Red Bull and skipped F2. He went right to Toro Rosso and became the youngest F1 driver, and well, the rest is history. But looking at Max's stats, he got third in F3 and his first at Zandvoort Masters. But really, all the success for Max was at the karting level, which allowed him to just jump into a higher F1. But to conclude the whole comparisons, it's hard to argue with the stats. Piastri, Leclerc, and Verstappen were all extremely good at racing before F1. And the Leclerc and Piastri routes are very similar, if not exact. So while we haven't seen Piastri race in an F1 car, it's not crazy far-fetched that he will be the next big thing. I could very well see a George Russell Williams situation or a Charles Leclerc Sauber situation happen with Piastri, but we'll get into that later. So the next question has to be asked. Why doesn't Oscar Piastri have a seat?
Hi everyone, it's Guan Yu Zhou. I just want to say big hello to all the Alfa Romeo Racing All-In fans. I'm really thankful for this opportunity.
My name's Alex Albon and I'll be a Williams racing driver for 2022.
You know, I get along with Alex very well, so extremely excited to have him as a teammate.
It's the question we've been debating all year. Why does blah 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 have a seat and not Piastri? Well, you have to look at his affiliations with teams to understand that. Piastri joined Renault Sport Academy back in 2020, making him an Alpine affiliated driver, so to say, which is exactly why he is the reserve driver for Alpine right now. And I want to track back to karting because Oscar was never really a part of any affiliations. He only signed in 2020. So for example, if he would have had a better karting career, he could have been a part of a bigger academy and then had an easier road to F1, but that is out of the factor now. As of 2020, he is a Renault driver, leaving his direct options to F1 as Renault or Alpine, who at the time had Daniel Ricciardo and Esteban Ocon. But Oscar Piastri is only tied to Alpine at this point, but not anymore. As of 2020, he is the reserve driver for McLaren as well. Now you may be asking, how did that happen? Isn't he an Alpine affiliated driver? Well, teams have relationships in F1, it's plain and simple. McLaren and Mercedes have a partnership, so McLaren can also borrow Nick de Vries or Stoffel van Dorn. McLaren also tapped into the Alpine program and signed Piastri. And the way that Alpine worded it was to, quote-unquote, offer Piastri more racing opportunities. And while it's great and all that Piastri has 2 reserve driver roles, you still have to ask the question, why isn't he a full-time driver? First, we have to look at Alpine themselves, who have a 2-time world champion Fernando Alonso, who has done a great job in that car, and Esteban Ocon, who won a race last year and is also doing a great job with that car. So it makes sense why he's not an Alpine this year. With the new car, having someone like Fernando is vital for Alpine, and then having Ocon return for another year makes perfect sense after his 2021 season. So what were the other options? He signed a reserve driver role with McLaren before the season started, but there is no way that he would ever replace Lando Norris or Daniel Ricciardo, although as of June, Daniel Ricciardo has had a rough start, but I doubt Alpine would sell Piastri to replace Ricciardo at this point. So that left 2 other options, Williams and Alfa Romeo. As we all know, Alfa Romeo chose to go with Zhou Guanyu because the finances he offered for the team, and he only has 1 point compared to Valtteri Bottas's 40, so maybe we could argue that Piastri should have had that seat. But Alfa Romeo needed a quote-unquote pay driver, not a talent that they would have to buy out. So then the other option was Williams. This was the most likely candidate other than Alpine. You would have thought that Alpine would have lended Piastri to Williams to get a season or 2 under his belt before being moved to Alpine. Instead, Williams did that with Alexander Albon, who had been replaced by Checo Perez at Red Bull. Alex Albon still has ties to Red Bull and still brings part of Red Bull to Williams, so this exact situation is happening with Albon instead of Oscar Piastri. But there is still another seat at Williams, but that belongs to Nicholas Latifi, who brings a ton of money with Sofina to Williams. And I think it's 100% agreement that Piastri do a much better job than Latifi, but he's a pay driver. But now for 2023, there are a ton of rumors that link Oscar Piastri to replace Nicholas Latifi at Williams next year, and I'm guessing that will in fact happen. But that still means that the former F2 champion will not have a drive in 2022. So, the other question we ask is, who's the last F2 champion to not make F1? I thought there wouldn't be one, but then I forgot about another Williams driver, Nick de Vries. And with the rules of F2, if you win the F2 championship, you can't race in it again, which is great for allowing new talent, but then you have Nick de Vries' situation and an Oscar Piastri situation. Nick de Vries won F2 but didn't have an F1 seat lined up because Williams needed Latifi's money and they already had George Russell. And he also wasn't going to be signed by any other Mercedes teams. So instead, Nick de Vries went to race for Mercedes in Formula E and won the championship in his first year. So both of these young men and kind of in the same situation. But now Nick de Vries is doing World Endurance, Le Mans, Formula E. He also did FP1 for Williams in Spain. But the matter and issue to look at here is that in the span of 3 years, both Oscar Piastri and Nick de Vries, who are F1 talents, who won F2 championships, are not on the Formula 1 grid. So that leads us to the final question. Who's at fault? We can blame a lot on different teams and owners and blah blah blah. The one a lot of people blame is Alfa Romeo because they chose to go with Guan Yu Zhou, who Oscar Piastri had proven he was better than. But as I mentioned before, Alfa Romeo needed the money and didn't need to spend it on Piastri. So we can blame the whole money driver thing on why he doesn't have a seat at Alfa, but that is the easy way out. We can blame Alpine themselves, but why would they want to replace Esteban Ocon, who they have a long-term contract with? And why would they want to part ways with Fernando Alonso, who has managed to race every millisecond out of that car? It just wouldn't make sense that they're a rookie in the mix and ruin a good thing that they have going on. But I think the real team we can blame this whole curious case of Oscar Piastri is F1 itself. It's the way of pay drivers that took 2 possible seats that were on the table for Piastri and maybe even Nick de Vries. It's that the lack of drivers, there's so many great drivers that 20 spots is just not enough. It's the structure of F2, with him not being even able to race in F2 this year because he won the championship last year. At least F1 is making teams use a reserve driver in 2 practice sessions, so we should see Oscar Piastri on track at some point this year. But all in all, I would love to know your thoughts on Piastri. Why is all this happening? What are his chances of leaving F1 if he doesn't get a seat in 2023? And will he and where drive in 2023? And is he really the next Charles Verstappen?